Okay, I'll wait till, there we go.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're continuing with the Budget Adjustment Act. And this afternoon, we have Grady Nixon with us from the Fiscal Office, who has put together all the language that we have so far into one document. So Grady, welcome and tell us all about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Grady Nixon, Joint Fiscal Office. So this is the formatted version of the governor's recommended budget adjustment. No language has been added to this from what was presented. This is just the cleaned up version. So today we'll do a quick walkthrough of what those sections do. And then I believe later on in the week, we'll be discussing new sections.
And as we go through this, we do want to see whether we agree with things or not. So, but that's part of what we're doing is this is markup for us. So, you know, we'll be going through probably not all the, oh, you're starting with B1100. Okay.
Right. So
we're not worrying about, you can tell us what we're doing.
This is just the language section of the bill. So this is everything after the B100s, the numbers sections. So you'll see we're starting at section 49. Everything before that has been cut out, and those sections will be dropped into the bill after the committee has made all of the decisions off of the spreadsheet that Emily presented.
So some of these things were on the spreadsheet as one time.
Yes.
We've gone through. So you will find that, but some of it is strictly just language.
Correct. And there are a couple of formatting things that I will flag for the committee as we go through this. So starting with section 49, which amends Act 113, section B1100, miscellaneous one-time appropriations. You'll see that there are more appropriations in this section than what was in the governor recommend. That's not the addition of more appropriations for all or any new appropriations. Those are just there for formatting corrections. So there are some instances where the governor is striking an appropriation or adding a new one. And that's just to make sure that we don't leave a semicolon or an and in the wrong place when the bill gets updated. So for instance, you'll see in section B1100 D8, D8 did not appear in the governor recommend, but I just want to make sure that we spike that and. So I've added that to the bill. In this section, you'll see that
Are we still on this first page right here?
yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So the underlying stuff is going to be the new stuff and or the strikeout.
Correct.
New stuff. The rest is all old stuff.
Correct.
Thank you.
So you'll see that there is an increase to the general fund appropriation for Vermont Household Health Insurance Survey from $400,000 to $550,000. Then a new $500,000 general fund appropriation for community grants relating to health equity, and $4 million general fund for contingent sustainability grants to mental health and substance use residential treatment facilities. This is one that is going to be affected by committee decisions, so it likely won't live in this section or in this form.
That's right. And we have decided on that one.
Yes.
To move to the 10. So just on this first page, committee, we've already said yes to the increase in household insurance survey, the 500,000, and we're crossing the 4 million out, and there's going to be replaced by 10 million, which I'm hearing is not in here because you're just taking
Yes.
Adam's language.
Right.
Okay. But that section 11 will go out. There may be, it'll show up in the 1100 somewhere.
Somewhere, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
On page 2 of the document, you'll see again, there is additional language here that wasn't in the GovRec, that's sub 3 there, which is just formatting. And then there is the $300,000 general fund and $660,000 federal fund for the Office of Child Support, Mainframe and Transition Planning, and sub 5, 1.8 million general fund for the existing one-time appropriation to CCWIS, that's the Comprehensive Child Welfare Information System. And this one I would flag for the committee too. You'll see the administration sent that over with the appropriation code in it. So that language will change just to match the formatting of the bill as it normally exists.
That 3349, blah, blah, that's going to go away.
Right.
Okay. All right. So hopefully this is all sounding familiar, these numbers and yeah, in general. Okay.
Then you'll see there is the change to the general fund and federal fund global commitment match in sub N sub 1. And then a change in sub O sub 1 to the global commitment match for Medicaid global payment. The administration included sub 2 and sub 3 here. Those do not need to be included, so those will be removed in the final version of the bill, just because no change needs to be made there.
Right.
Then finally, there's the State Treasurer's Office $14 million general fund. So this was making whole what was transferred, and there's committee discussion revolving around this as well.
On that one, thank you.
On the very bottom of page 4, you'll see section 50 amending Act 113, section D100. This is the allocation of the property transfer tax. So you'll see that these numbers are struck out and then new numbers are underlined. There's committee discussion surrounding the allocation of the property transfer tax. So there were decisions made in Act 181 of last year that impact this allocation. So these numbers will be updated, reflecting the committee's decision.
So in fact, it's not Act 181, it's Act 113, the budget that we're using that's impacting the decisions. There were a couple of different places, and we agreed that it should be the budget as the director.
Yes.
The director. And so this is Mike. So he and I have chatted. Ted from JFO is coming in around 2:15, 2:20 to talk about the proposed change that the RPCs will be happy about.
And you'll see later on, there's a section in the budget adjustment that removes a section from Act 181, reflecting Madam Chair's statement that all of this will live in the budget solely.
Great.
Section 51, so this amends Act 113, section D101, fund transfers.
This, we have seen all these numbers.
Yes, so you'll have seen this all. This is one of those sections that, depending on committee discussions, may be altered to incorporate GovRec FY26 language. So a C section of the FY26 GovRec budget further amends this section. So the committee will need to make decisions on how to incorporate that, and if so.
In sections of FY26.
Section 52, beginning on page 11. Again, this is also further amended in a C section of the FY26 budget. So there will be committee discussion and decisions regarding how to incorporate that.
Okay, so we're talking pages 7, 8, and 9.
10, 11, 13,
Okay,
all the way through to 15. So transfers, reserves, and reversions.
so these were, we saw all of these in the language. These are nothing new here. Okay.
So that brings us to page 15, section 54. This is a GovRec proposal to convert 8 existing limited service positions to exempt permanent status in the Office of the Defender General. There's no additional funding request for these positions. That funding already exists in the FY 2025 budget.
Okay, and I think this is where we're getting some language too. Is this the one? No, it's the AG's office. Never mind. A different G.
Correct.
Okay.
Section 55 on page 16. So this is amending global commitment match numbers to reflect current estimates.
That's so the roll up of all the things that we've talked about.
Correct. On page 17, toward the bottom, section 56. This is amending Act 113, sections relating to the Pay Act. So this is a lot of language continuing over to page 19 for a small technical change. So this is just reflecting that these should be going to the Liquor Control Fund rather than the board itself.
Right.
And you'll see that throughout both the budget adjustment and the budget itself. There are a lot of sections where it's multiple pages, but what's actually happening is quite minor.
Right.
Section 57 on page 19. So this is extending the repeal of the telephone personal property tax and the alternative telephone gross revenues tax. This is because you'll see in the explanation, the time frame originally designated for this tax valuation was insufficient. So this is extending the time frame of that.
So pause there for a second. John, is this one yours? Telephone? PUC, that's sort of like the PUC or something? Did we decide that was okay to extend it for a year?
I
Because they
think so.
should do it, yeah. Everybody okay with that?
It's just a language.
Or it's just a year change?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's nothing else I knew.
This was intended to sunset the end of 24.
So the tax itself was going to, or both taxes were going to be repealed on July 1st, 2025 and January 1st, 2026 respectively. This is kicking those repeals out by 1 year.
And what's the purpose of kicking them out when you?
So they need to complete a complex tax valuation and they have not had appropriate time necessary to secure contracts that they need for that.
You can do it here, or we can do it in the regular budget, right?
Yes.
No,
For school, there is a reason why, the tax department had proposed putting it in BAA rather than, the big hill and then there's a that would have, taken effect in April. So, they were hoping to push everything out a year. So they had clarity before it affected the cost of confusion.
That's fine. I was just checking to see if you were paying attention.
And your committee on Ways and Means was also paying attention to this issue
Yes.
and flagged their support for it in their letter to you.
thank you. I was
Thank you.
just gonna look that up and you answered my question. Tom and then Wayne, you're all set, Wayne?
And I'm for this because my local little small telephone company, this placed the burdens, especially on the small telephone companies, to do this kind of work, right? The big guys was easier for them probably because they had a lot more staff. But in order to do this and turn this around is hardship on them. I talked to them.
So they're happy. Okay, everybody's happy. We've got that one closed.
Section 58, so this relates to that prior section. So those language sections go together.
Okay, so a passage date, yep, okay.
Section 59, I would flag for the committee that Nolan Langwell of the Joint Fiscal Office is speaking to the administration about this. There is a discussion about the status of this as a one-time appropriation or not. So this section may end up being struck from the bill pending the accuracy. So the Joint Fiscal Office will have more information on section 59 soon.
Was this, this was with the EMTs. We did something with this last year. Right, this is with the EMTs. They were only getting paid if they transported people to the hospital.
Correct.
And the
Versus just responding.
versus just responding and fixing the problem right there. And so we put money in to allow for them to treat without having to take them to the hospital. So to a new, so does anybody know more about this? New one-time appropriation, that's the difference, that's the change, is the set of.
That is the change and the Joint Fiscal Office.
So had it been in base and we're changing it, they want to change it to a one-time?
I think it is, I'll defer to Emily or Chris on this, but my understanding is that the administration interpreted this as a new one-time appropriation and the Joint Fiscal Office disagrees with that status.
We're in active conversations.
Okay, so that's why we haven't closed this yet. Thank you.
Section 60, this is a technical update reflecting that this appropriation is directed to the Department of Economic Development rather than to the agency itself. I would flag for the committee that I'll likely maintain the Agency of Commerce and Community Development in there just to maintain practice. So we typically refer to agency and then department. So both of those will be there, but there will be increased clarity for the administration to understand where the appropriation is being directed.
And I think that was shown as two different things in the spreadsheet at one point. The net neutral, so it's just changing who gets the money within the agency, and I think we're okay with that, right?
Section 61, so this relates back to those updates to section D100 of Act 113, the property transfer tax. So this is just pulling that out of Act 181.
Oh, yes, because we're not using Act 181. Okay.
Section 62, so this is another technical adjustment to an appropriation in terms of where it's being referred to. So the state cannot appropriate to a non-state entity. So rather than having this appropriation in Act 181 being directed to the Vermont State Housing Authority, it's directed to the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Pretty okay with that? We got that. Thank you.
Section 63, so this reflects a letter of intent change that was requested by the General Assembly. The language amending 2022 Acts and Resolves number 182 was intended to increase program flexibility, not remove prior appropriations. So that is restoring language or clarifying language so that an appropriation is not removed.
So there's no new money in all this, it's just clarifying language. Yeah. Okay, people all right with that? Okay.
Section 64, so this is reducing an appropriation that was made in Act 181 to the Natural Resources Board. So this is to reflect a $900,000 reduction in that appropriation to cover the fund transfer to the Act 250 permit fund. I would flag for the committee in this, because of the way the effective dates in Act 181 worked, the Natural Resources Board ceased to exist on the start of the fiscal year. So this will be further technically updated to reflect that this should be appropriated to LURB, not NERB.
Right. Land Use Resources Board. Yes, and I know you and Trevor were working on that. So we've had this conversation. People okay with that?
Yeah, well,
You're good with that? All right.
Section 65. So this is another section that goes on for quite a while to reflect a pretty small change. So if you skip ahead to page 28, this relates to compensation for overpayment for towns. So two technical updates are being made across several pages of language. This is just reflecting that you cannot transfer funds to a town. You can only transfer funds to another fund. So this directs it as a credit. And then it also updates it to direct it to the districts themselves rather than individual towns. So this is another legislative intent requested change just for clarity on this.
So this isn't involving money. This is just fixing up the.
This is just making sure that that compensation for overpayment can occur.
Are these, a lot of these all yours, John?
Based on particularly,
Yeah. Right, and a lot of them did, and I remember us reading all these little numbers here and there, and so now we're getting it right. So they're getting their money, it's just a different way.
different.
Okay, so I think we're good with that one. Okay.
Page 29, section 66. So this is amending the miscellaneous one-time section of Act 78, the fiscal year 2024 big bill. So in this section here, A sub 2, this is just allowing for greater flexibility of the use of this appropriation to cover unanticipated administrative costs and costs relating to limited service positions and contracting for programs and services related to declared disaster work. I would flag for the committee here that there are C sections and E sections in the governor recommend FY26 budget that further amend section B1100 of Act 78 that may be pulled in here. So those C and E sections, I think there's 3 of them in total, may be pulled into section 66 of the BAA pending committee decisions on that.
Okay, so I don't think I was aware of that, but I haven't really spent a lot of time in the FY26 budget. This is your area. So we'll, yeah.
Is there more money committed?
Not here.
Not in this section here.
But in the season.
I would have to review. I
Okay.
can't remember offhand.
We're getting an updated version of the language for the FY 26 budget.
So I'll be working over the next few days to format it in this way for the committee. That likely will be available next week, but I'll be presenting sections to the committee that may be pulled into the bill.
If the current one with that green, you can't read it, so I don't know if it can go back and be fixed, so we can at least try to read it.
When I bring you the formatted version, it will look exactly like this with different words.
Yeah, fair, thanks. Wait, more questions, Tom?
All right, just to be clear, this is language that we didn't deal with this year, this is what we dealt with a year ago. This is a different fiscal year.
FY 24 budget.
Yes, so this was appropriated in Act 78, not Act 113.
Okay, so this is the first time we're hearing about these changes,
This would have been in the language that we had.
right? But we didn't take any testimony on changes to the 24.
Well, we just had Doug come in and talk about flood stuff. So I don't remember.
I don't remember the $15 million, you know, where they're.
It's not new
We're not-
money. That's
it's
not
not
new
the
money.
money
It's
that
not the
was-
money. It's the underlying part of
Right.
this.
So it's just adding increased flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
So this might change.
Section 67, this is amending section B 1102 of Act 185, which was the fiscal year 2023 budget. So there was an appropriation for ERP system upgrade. This is adding in human capital management so that funds from that appropriation can be used to address that aspect of ERP as well.
So this is Jim's.
Yeah, it's, what's happening is that ERP is all encompassing, so all these systems are together.
So are you comfortable with that?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's just to clarify that it's
okay,
also the, you know, human resources side of things, as well as all the financial aspects tied in together
okay.
in one system. Make our life easier some point.
Someday.
In a very distant future, probably.
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay, thank you.
Section 68 at the bottom of page 30. So you'll see that this is amending the Technology Modernization Special Fund statute. This is just a technical correction that you can't appropriate to a fund. So it is spiking or appropriated.
And transferred. I knew that before. Okay,
Section 69. So this is one that looks quite different from the GovRec language. I did this in a couple of places. We don't need to show everything that is being repealed when we're doing a repeal. So this saves some trees by doing it this way. The Workforce Education and Training Fund is a defunct fund. So here the administration is recommending repealing that fund.
so my one question on this, Grady, and thank you for saving a few trees, is do we need to say anything about the balance being returned to the general fund? Or is that an automatic thing that happens and we don't need to say it?
I believe in statute, once a fund is repealed, the funds would be automatically transferred to the fund of origin.
Chris, for joint fiscal in the D101 fund transfers, you'll also see that the residual balance of $2,598,921.75 can be proposed to be transferred.
So that's where we see, we don't have to say it because we're showing it there. Okay, great, thank you.
Section 70 at the bottom of page 31. So this makes a couple of technical changes. You'll see again at the top of page 32, that striking of appropriation to reflect that funds can only have funds transferred, not appropriated. And then what's being struck here is language relating to transfers from the litigation settlement fund. The administration, you'll see in the explanation, this language is annually not withstood, so they recommend striking it from statute so that it does not need to be not withstood in the future. A transfer could be made still if the General Assembly were to decide to.
So what's the litigation settlement fund? Is that from the AG's office?
I'm not sure.
Where do you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
you know?
in AG's office.
The tobacco.
The litigation settlement fund is part of the tobacco fund?
The tobacco trust fund, sorry.
They're not the same. I don't think.
They're not the same.
This is the general monies they get from lawsuits and things like
Yeah.
that. That's what I
Okay.
understand.
Okay, so,
As opposed to like the tobacco fund.
Yeah. well, I think it's fine either way, because if we're not doing it, it says you can do it. Oh, it says shall be. Yeah, so you can get money from there. And transfers by the General Assembly.
And
And then we have, and now we have and contributions from any other source. So that sort of covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can take it or leave it on that. All right. I think that seems all right. Is that all right with you two?
Yeah, yes,
Okay. This is yours.
yes, I know.
Okay.
I had talked with Maria a little bit earlier today.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Grady.
Section 71 on page 33. So this relates to the amount of notice period for underground utility facilities and proposed excavation activities. It was the intention of the General Assembly to extend that notice period from 48 hours to 72 hours, but this was not done. So this language just reflects that change, extending that notice period.
Great. And we have discussed that, and John, you recommend that we do this. Yeah, okay. Okay,
Section 72, beginning on the bottom of page 34, and actually where that change is being made is on the top of page 35. So this is adding state offices to the definition of state agency in statute for acceptance of grants, so that state offices such as the Office of the Child and Youth Advocate can receive grants.
oh, thank you for giving an example. Yeah.
Section 73, so this is making changes to emergency board authority. The Joint Fiscal Office is reviewing this and recommends that this section be part of the larger FY26 budget discussion. This change does not need to happen in the Budget Adjustment Act. And there's current ongoing discussion about how and whether to make this change to e-board authority.
Yeah, this feels like a big policy shift, and as a member of the e-board, I feel like we really haven't talked about it. And it's, yeah, so we can, what I'm hearing is it might be a good idea to remove it from here and take it up in the FY26 budget.
Correct.
Are people okay with that? I'm okay with that, and
Is
I'm with
there
the
any
e-board.
downside to delaying that discussion?
No, so this is e-board authority that would apply to when the General Assembly is not in session, so.
it would be until summer
Yeah.
anyhow.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Yes, that's fine.
so remove this. Okay, so you can take that out. Thank you.
Section 74, beginning on page 36, relates to Commissioner of Finance and Management authority to transfer balances of appropriations. So this reflects inflationary increases. The dollar amounts that you'll see here have not been updated since 1999 and 1999 and 2004 respectively. So this is allowing the Commissioner of Finance Management to have the same transfer authority, but just to keep up with inflation.
So we haven't actually had a committee conversation about this too much. I don't even know who this would belong to. Oh, Commissioner of Finance, Mike. Have you had any conversation with it?
No, I mean, obviously, Commissioner Gresham gave us testimony on that.
Yeah.
Other than that, no.
Okay. Does anybody or you or have any strong feelings about this one way or the other?
I think Brady's right. It's an inflationary adjustment.
Based on the
Sounded like it hadn't been changed in years. And the reality is 50,000 is a lot of money to us individually. It's not 50,000 anymore. So I have no problem with it.
And I concur, having to deal with these things before, just, things, the dollar value has gone way up.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly no problem for the 100 to 200. And Yeah, anybody else have any thoughts or opinions on this, Tom?
Just a question, if, I don't have a problem with making it inflationary, but statutes are right with numbers like this. And so at some point, do they get reviewed, or is it just a one shot when somebody finds something and says, it should be?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm guessing since this affected finance and management personally and their ability to do things, that probably brought that up.
Maybe
Yeah.
joint fiscal has some perspective.
Do you need summer work?
We need summer work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can give us one job over the summer, if this is our only. We can't do any other work. No, I think it comes up when it sort of becomes a like, either, hey, we haven't looked at this in a while, we should talk about this, or, I think this one, moving $50,000 around, this, that's nothing in big state budgets.
Yeah, I mean, just the format, but I mean, this
Yeah.
is something
Yeah.
that's,
What
that
process?
my experience has been, when it comes across, you kind of go, wow, that looks low. Kind of reason it usually, it hasn't been increased since
Right.
1947 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very scientific.
So I can remember when it got raised from 25 to 50.
Maria, you don't wanna reveal too much information.
Okay, somebody remember when it was 5? Okay, so is everybody good with that? Great.
Yes, but that would appear when we looked at the budget, those would appear as a transfer someplace, wouldn't they? Or would it be able to gross?
You never see them, no.
Okay, so let's say that we agree with that. Good with that, Mike? Okay. That's a decision made.
So the next three sections, section 76, 77, the next two sections, section 76 and 77, are technical adjustments to statute to reflect current practice and the existence of debt service funds.
So I do want to just say my little piece about this on my soapbox. So this happened for the first time last year in the budget adjustment. So this is kind of like the third time. When we pay the debt, this is changing it from the word appropriate to transfer. Is that correct? Is this the appropriate to transfer?
So you'll see here in section 75, 76, and 77.
Yeah.
So you'll see in section 75, for instance, it's striking general fund or transportation fund or other applicable funds and inserting governmental debt service funds established in section
Okay.
951A of this chapter.
And I think if there were any tweaks in that, Lynn was going to give them to you from the treasurer.
Yes, so there is one technical change that I'll present to the committee that was sent to us from the treasurer's office.
Okay, so that wasn't the one I had this year. So yes, so that Lynn was fine with this, she told me, and we'll get a little tweak. So I just want to stop at 75 there. Is that people seem okay with that or need more explanation about that section? Hearing none, I'm going to say that we're okay.
Okay,
It's the next one that we changed. We used to appropriate money to pay our debt service every year. And because of the way our statutes are written, when we fill our reserves, we take 5% of the prior year appropriation and put that in our reserves up to whatever the statutory limit is. When you transfer, you are not appropriating. This is right. So that money is not part of the 5% that we appropriate. So by transferring, we put less in the reserves by it, but it saves us about $3.5 million, something like that. Am I got that right? So that's why this was started. It's also a very common practice. The potential downside is that over the course of years, that's $3.5 million. It's not going into the reserve fund year after year, but we pretty much are at our statutory limit, I think, something like that. I'm looking around, see if anybody can tell me more about that. So we have felt comfortable doing this, but we were concerned when this first came up a year ago. And we were doing it on a one-time basis, and I think now the request is to put this in statute. Do I have that right?
yes.
So I just want people to understand what it is we're doing when we do this. And if you have questions, this would be a great time to ask them, Lane.
And this is the bonded money from the capital bill that's coming in here. So we have 20 years of capital bill money that's out there, and it staggers. They get
Right.
paid off every year, and the new one goes in place every year. So we have to pay the interest annually on those that are out there, right? And so I think that's been coming down lately in terms of the amount of interest because we haven't been able to get as much bonding capacity.
Right. Right. And we did it in the form of appropriation before, and now we're doing it in the form of a transfer. So do you get the distinction of what that means? Am I explaining that well enough to?
I think I understand, but if people
Yeah.
have questions.
This is the time to ask if you have questions or would like more. Grady or somebody over there can explain it better.
The appropriation of 5% of the previous years.
So we always do that, but this is
Always.
not called an appropriation anymore. So it reduces our appropriations by the 75 million or whatever it is. So 5% of whatever that is now not getting transferred to the reserve. Because so we're saving general fund money, but we're not putting that money into the reserve. Tim.
Well, I mean, I was just remembering the conversation last year, the year before, when this came up, and there was some concern about whether this was good practice, right? But the note here says, in accordance with GASB principles, is this the way in which GASB is this what is recommended as a best practice, I guess?
I'll punt that to Emily or Chris.
Chris with Joint Fiscal, so I'm not an accountant or a GASB expert, but I can relay what I've heard around this. This is similar to the edit that is being recommended to that technology modernization special fund. My understanding as the non-accountant is that when you are moving funds from one fund to another fund, it is a transfer, not an appropriation per GASB. And the way we have been doing things is you're really transferring the debt service costs from the general fund and the little piece from the T fund to a debt service fund. So you're doing an interfund transfer. And then from that debt service fund is where the debt service costs are paid out from. So this change would align with the GASB rules around transfers. As I understand it as a non-accountant. I would also like to just remind the committee that with respect to the impact on the stabilization reserve and the 5%.
Yeah.
Just be mindful of the fact that at the close of FY 24, an additional like $17.7 million was added to the rainy day fund. So that more than offsets whatever impact in the near term that this change has on the state's reserve balances.
And the way you said that right at the beginning reminded me of Grady, didn't you say we can't appropriate to a fund?
Correct.
So so that's the other thing, we can't appropriate to a fund. Okay, and this is typically the way other states do it, as I understand from what Adam said too. All right, I'm feeling better about that. Everybody okay on that now? All right, thank you.
Skipping over to page 41, section 78. So this is amending the statute relating to the cash fund, particularly the capital infrastructure subaccount of the cash fund. So for the administration's note, this creates parity between the review and reallocation process for capital cash fund appropriations and bonded dollar appropriations.
This we're keeping open, just you did your thing and we're checking into that. Did you happen to talk to Alice?
Yes, I had Aaron print out a copy of the statute. Alice wanted to see the statute.
Okay,
So I gave her a copy of what this is and a
Okay.
copy of the statute, so she has something that she can.
okay, so we're waiting to hear back. So this one we are keeping open for the moment. Thank you.
Section 79 at the bottom of page 41. So this is another one where you'll see a lot of the language that was in the GovRec is no longer there. And it's another repeal of a defunct fund that's recommended by the administration.
Everybody okay with that? Great.
Section 80, so this is annual necessary carry forward language. to make sure that the Department of Finance and Management can properly execute fiscal year 2025 closeout.
But we added the technology modernization special fund to this. That was the new part this year. The rest of them, I don't know why everything was underlined.
Because this is session law, so it's annual to the bill, but
Okay.
it's new language every year.
Okay. So Jim, did you have any thoughts on that?
Fine.
You're fine with it? Okay. Thank you. Here's a book. Okay. So good with adding that, the technology, everybody seems okay. We'll check that off.
And then the final section on page 43, so this is the effective dates section. I would just note for the committee that the effective dates of particular sections differ. So typically, effective dates for the budget adjustment are effective on passage. You'll see here relating to that PTT change, there is one section that would be effective retroactively to the beginning of the fiscal year. And this section may change depending on what sections ultimately make it into the bill. I'm not aware of any at this time, but there's the potential that another individual section may need a different effective date.
Right. Right. So we don't need to do anything with that right now, but just be aware that it change. Well, you got that into fewer pages, Grady, then, but we'll expand it with the language. Do we have any of the new language pieces yet or not?
I'm working on collating them and getting them into a packet for the committee so that we can go through as much of it as possible at once. So I'm not sure if the committee wants to work on markup relating to new language sections later this afternoon. If the committee would like to, I can bring as much as possible over later on.
I think that would be great.
Great.
That would be great. Because I'm not sure, Emily, is there anything else we're missing at this point?
I don't think so. I mean, there were a few open items. I know people were gonna talk to folks at lunchtime.
Right. So we can see if anybody has anything. Jim had one of them, but he might be back. Some folks were gonna meet. Were there any open night? I don't want to put anybody in the spot. If you're not ready, that's fine. Or we are fine on time. But let's see. So Tom, we're gonna have the language come, but did you already talk to us about the X-ray machine and what's coming with your language? Do you want to
Sure.
just fill us in on what that is so people know what's coming?
Sure. I was asked, we were asked to change the language and authority to spend to the Sergeant at Arms office. There was a line item last year that appropriated $100,000 to the Sergeant at Arms office to buy furniture for the cafeteria. And they've done so. Apparently, they're done transacting. There's more chairs that are due. FYI.
Tom is focused on these chairs. He's got this down.
Does anybody want to hazard a guess on how much each of those new cafeteria chairs cost?
$500 a piece.
What's that?
500.
500 is correct.
For the,
Yes,
Ding, ding, ding.
just think of what
I
it
guess
should be.
they're expected to last for 50 years. The expenditure did not come close to the $100,000. The Secretary, Sergeant at Arms office has a need, along with Capitol Police, to purchase, or desire anyway, to purchase an X-ray machine for security reasons, and they want to just change this language so that they can use the excess of this appropriation for that purpose.
So that's the language that we're gonna have. It's gonna just change the spending authority.
Yes.
Any questions on that? Dave, were you meeting with some people to get a couple of?
I did, I'm just pulling up Emily's big spreadsheet here on the
Oh, okay,
on
great.
the web to find my section.
Okay.
17 maybe, hold on. Here we are. Oops, no, I opened it. It's in there.
We have some revenue realignment.
Lots of them. But
Yeah.
what section do you see that on?
Well, I see B 317 on the spreadsheet, the line item on Emily's spreadsheet or the one on Adam's spreadsheet?
The one on Emily there was a note there, I believe. That said hold.
Transportation contracts 33.
Okay. In any
Open,
event, so I explored what that was. There are a series of transportation for children in substitute care that the federal government will not pay for. Many of them, they're transporting children all the time to different foster care homes, to different residential care homes, to medical appointments, and they contract that out and it's costly. That's what's in that line item.
okay. And it's just higher than
Yeah.
they expected it to be.
Yes, there it is, transportation. Yes, there aren't many contractors that do this.
Okay. Sort of like school buses. Over a barrel on that, okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? And if not, can we close that one? You recommend closing?
Yes,
it?
I do.
Okay. Now we can close the transportation contracts part of the,
That was the easy one.
okay,
Then there's there were just a lot of revenue realignments. I can't find them here, but it was an awkward time going through them the other day. So I went through them all again. Some of them are the easy, well, nothing's easy, but the ADS payments.
right,
But a lot of it, as the business manager explained, you do this in the BAA, they're transferring money into the mixing bowl, money's coming back from the mixing bowl. So there's like 4 net neutrals there.
right,
There's no new policy changes. They moved some money so that they had 2 different appropriations, one in the admin and one in the one-time to work on the new IT system. So they got them all in the central
oh,
office
yes,
now.
that's the sewage thing, yeah,
It's just easier, so I felt comfortable.
okay,
I don't know if it's a remaining flag, but I wanted to go back to it.
yes,
So people know I'm more,
okay, so all the revenue realignments we're okay with.
yes.
All right, that sounds good. I think they were in several places.
And then we were-
But
There was another one, we were gonna touch base with Diva and I didn't get a chance to loop back around. Maria, have we heard from them?
It's about the tail issue. Oh, no, this is, I'm sorry, excuse me, let me look.
We were reaching out for some clarification. It was
Not, I do not see anything in my inbox.
okay.
is that the Medicaid only advanced planning document? Or was that already the revenue realignment? That's part of revenue.
There's 2 issues that total 0.
Right,
And
and
yes,
yeah, so that was the Medicaid only advanced planning document. I don't even know what that is. I sort of can guess, but maybe I don't.
Before they amend the Medicaid state plan, they submit a planning request.
Oh,
Give you a heads up. When you think about this CMS, we're thinking about doing this regarding transportation and they get makes
okay,
sense, you can proceed, it's technically compliant, and then they actually do the Medicaid state. plan.
okay, so like a trial balloon kind of thing.
I know, you get a read.
Okay, I thought it was about individuals doing their advanced planning, so I'm glad to know.
The employees that are aging, not the beneficiaries, I don't know. No, it's an internal.
Okay. Tom,
Yeah, I have something else. Along with the language about the chairs. Scott Moore provided me with a small list of reversions from the legislature that I don't see here on page 11 or 12.
that's for FY 26.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me. Thank you.
Okay. Get to keep the money for a little longer. Oh, good, and Jim's back, so we can ask him what he thinks.
Yes, I know.
You met with ADS.
I did. What's the question?
Did we have something open about that? We did.
And I am,
Technology updates, ADS contracts, B306. I think that was me. You don't usually have the 300s, but,
B306.
oh no, I guess maybe it was just about the ERP. Well, was there anything else with the ADS?
Yes, it's actually in DCF, there is a open line. Very bottom of page 7. $1 million. 340,000 of general account,
Oh,
600,000
yes,
in federal funding, federal funds.
several funds, right?
That is actually from DCF. But I asked ADS if they could dig into it and get me some explanation, so I don't have it yet, but I probably will have it before the day's over.
Okay,
They were gonna talk, that wasn't something ADS initiated.
Right.
It was something that came from, and there is, we may have checked it off on the top of page 8. 1.8 million. I think we checked that off. That is for the child welfare information
Right.
system. And the RFP for that, and that is a recognition that their initial estimates for that system.
and you're consolidating 3 different appropriations and seeing one of them into one location so they could manage the IT project from one, department number instead of, right? So I think we're okay on that one too.
My
That's
understanding
what's
is
on line 22. Is that correct?
This sheet here. The summary. sheet.
Yes, that was the, thank you. Oh, yeah, actually, that's a very good point. Thank you, Tiff. Grady, I don't know that you need to sit there. Thank you very much. As we all have our little discussion. Emily has to go and come back when you have more. We'll work on it. Thanks. Thank you, Tim. I'm so sorry.
I think we need a few more spreadsheets.
We'll see you later. Thank you. So what was this
Okay, so the other,
ADP, IDT?
okay, it's not on here, but we had a suggestion that we pause whole ERP program,
Right,
and
that's right.
I am not recommending we do that.
Okay.
That's not what John Top did, and the fact is, we have a contract that we're out there. Whether we positive or not positive, we're gonna have to. So there's a, JITOC is doing some additional oversight and reporting and ADS on the project.
And JITOC is Joint
Information Technology, something.
Oversight Committee. All the OCs are oversight committees. So, yes, this is one that we had spent a lot of time on last year, and we were very concerned about,
And we should still.
Yes, and we're gonna keep an eye on it.
Shame.
Yeah,
But one of the interesting things I learned in the current world, for example, different departments, do things like Excel spreadsheets, and they have to be uploaded. And they're not always, they may not always match the right fields. So this is going to change
oh, yeah,
everything that state governments in terms of putting it all together, whether it's the vision expense form, your payroll forms, budgeting forms. But it's a huge undertaking, but it has to be done. A lot of the things are not up to date with today's security standards. So, and there's costs of not doing anything too with our,
right.
whatever,
But you're feeling more
Yes,
comfortable
I am.
about it. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the main thing. And they know we're keeping an eye on it. So that's also important.
that's good.
So,
It's a
yeah.
checks and balances. So
Yeah. And you've been on it for the last couple of years. So it's really helpful that we have that eyes on it.
You know, I've been involved with some of that stuff. I know in Pennsylvania where I just left, we had a room twice as big as this with programmers in there, like almost 24, maybe 20 programmers, and all day long, they were just in there, just programming away, doing exactly this. You know, like those spreadsheets, they may be, it's gonna be SQLs and what most stuff he's doing now. So they'd be writing a little program so that you could take a standard spreadsheet and convert that so it goes into the fields, you know, in the SQL field, so that then everything works together.
Right.
That still allows the flexibility for the people on the ground to be able to do what they need to do,
Right.
right? So that's
Right.
a tremendous job.
Right. So we're kind of in that place with the end of a bill, one of our, the budget adjustment and the, well, it's going to happen with crossover and bills are going to start coming to us then, where we're going to do a bunch of stopping and starting. So what I'm going to suggest is that we, in a minute, we'll go off live and we'll come back at 2:15. And Ted is going to come and talk about the property transfer tax. And we're going to go off live after that and have a little break. So that's just kind of what it's going to be. If you've got other things you need to make sure you have language on or whatever, use the break time as you need to. So that's where we're going. And let's go off live.